Tom, how does it look?
All right, so Willie, what we have is a jobs number that is pretty good, much better than expected. The number of jobs created by the U.S. economy in the month of October comes in at 128,000. That far outweighs the analyst estimates for 75,000 jobs created. What's also interesting is the previous 2 months, in August and September, were revised higher by a total of an additional 95,000 jobs. The unemployment rate did tick slightly higher from 3.5 to 3.6%. That was in line with analyst estimates. Average hourly earnings, that's a key metric people watch to see if people are actually making more money. They made 0.2% more on a month-over-month basis between September to October. That's also 3% more in terms of paycheck than at the same time last year. A couple of the breakdown elements here just for your perusal. Because of the GM situation, the strike and everything, there were a net 42,000 jobs lost in the auto and auto parts industries. That drove a total manufacturing industry loss overall. Restaurants and bars and hospitality were the big gainers in terms of jobs. They created 48,000 of them. But two of the numbers that we will look more closely at: the labor force participation rate, the number of people who are actively out there seeking jobs, actually increased from 63.2 to 63.3%, which means more people feel comfortable going out there to look for a job. That was one reason why the unemployment rate might have slightly ticked higher. Also, the U6, or the broader measure of unemployment, those people who are unemployed for economic reasons or work multiple jobs to kind of make ends meet, that number does tick slightly higher as well, from 6.9 to 7%. But broadly speaking, Willie, guys, what this does signal is that the job gains do continue, albeit at a more modest pace, but it does kind of weaken the case that President Trump might have for lowering interest rates. The U.S. economy does still seem to be moving along just at a slower clip, Willie.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.